Hi, welcome to the monthly vlog of the Airedale, Wharfdale and Craven Provider Alliance. My name is Rebecca Hewitt and I work for the Voluntary and Community Sector Alliance of Bradford, Airedale, Wharfdale and Craven. I'm going to tell you about what happened in our May meeting. It covered quite a broad range of subjects, which we don't have time to go into the detail of here today, but there are a couple of things that I wanted to pick out for you, particular highlights. One was a discussion around urgent and emergency care and the recent awarding of contracts to deliver those services. We had quite a big discussion actually about how the shared record for patients and our ability across the system to access that information is a bit of a stumbling block at the moment, and we talked about looking at models in other areas of the country where it doesn't seem to be so much of a stumbling block. We also had a bit of a chat about patient consent and actually the question of whether all patients in primary care have been asked for their consent. So we're going to go away and look into that actually and work out what the patterns are in terms of where consent is being given and isn't, and see if there's something we can do about that too. So that should really free the system up to be able to work in a more coordinated way. We also looked at how we might better link in with the voluntary and community sector and social prescribing and care coordination in relation to urgent and emergency care, and a couple of members of the group agreed to go off and look at better ways of providing that type of service. The May meeting also discussed the NHS long-term plan. In fact, we were given a really interesting presentation by Steve Gascoigne and Andy Parsons, who talked about where within the long-term plan there might be opportunities for us locally to align with those national priority areas, particularly in relation to our community partnerships. We've got 3 community partnerships, one for Airedale, one for Wharfdale and one for Craven, which are made up of GPs, voluntary sector, local authority, hospitals, just to be able to work together around smaller communities. Another thing that we discussed was, in terms of the NHS long-term plan, was workforce, not just NHS workforce but across the whole system. And at one of the recent community partnership meetings there'd been a discussion about workforce. What I mean by that is how people who work within the system can be supported to be able to do their job more easily, more efficiently, in a way that makes them want to come to work and doesn't sort of fill them with dread. And I say that because one of the discussions was about red tape. What can we do to get rid of unnecessary bureaucracy? Obviously some of it's there for safety reasons and for really legitimate reasons, but what can we do differently and better to cut out some of the wasted time and energy that goes on dealing with red tape? So our July meeting of the Provider Alliance for Airedale, Wharfdale and Craven will look into that subject in a lot more detail, and we'll come out of that meeting with some resolutions about what we actually want to do across the system. So as part of the discussion about workforce, we spent some time thinking about how as employers we can support our workforce in terms of their well-being and their advancement, their just growth within our organisations, but also, for example, within the NHS and local authority employers, how we can work better and more closely with the communities that we're serving and actually support those people to get into employment, perhaps with us as employers. And in the voluntary and community sector, it's a slightly different picture in the sense that a lot more of our workforce actually comes from volunteering, but nonetheless I think working together we can support each other to understand what some of the barriers and issues might be. Okay, so that's it from me. Thanks for watching, and don't forget you can keep in touch by following us on Twitter.